Oh, you got my good side. Hi, my name is Corey, and I want to welcome you all to the U.S. Army. Thank you for registering in our draft, and I hope you're all ready to die. Oop, I mean, I hope you're all ready to save our country. That's what I meant to say. Excuse me, like little sneeze there. So when I give you these slips, Sean, do you want to tell us what's on your slip?
Congratulations on being drafted to the U.S. Army. You would have been a successful doctor that saved hundreds of lives, but you died for your country instead. Too bad.
Too bad, right? I mean, it happens. You had to get drafted, so that's what happens, right? Somebody else have something different under that? Thank you for, yeah.
You would have been around for your child throughout their life, but you died for your country instead. Too bad.
Too bad. That's what happens. Anybody else have something different?
You would have been an amazing teacher that inspired hundreds of kids to learn and always use their full potential, but you died for your country instead. Too bad.
Too bad. See, the draft is actually, I would say, a terrible thing. I mean, I commend those who actually register for the military, those that do want to be heroes for our country when the time is necessary. But for those that are unfortunate that get drafted in, they are actually forced to register. I'm sure all the guys in here know that you have to register as a U.S. citizen by the time you're 18 years old. And there are actually some pretty bad consequences if you don't register. But if you do, when you do register and they want to call you into war, you have to go in no matter what your plans are for life. So what I want to convince you all of tonight is why the U.S. draft is actually unjust. So what I'm going to go over tonight is, one, what the consequences of not registering for the draft and why the consequences are unjust. Two, I'm going to compare the age range of the draft to the drinking age in the country. And three, I'm going to explain why the particular age range of the draft is unfair, especially unfair. So, starting with the consequences of the draft if you don't register. So, did you all know that actually if you don't register for the draft when you come of age, 18, that you can be fined up to $250,000? Yeah, actually $250,000. I'm sure, I mean, me, I don't have that much money, you know, just at my disposal. So that pretty much just either throws me into bankruptcy for life or that just forces me to sign up for the Army and get drafted. Another consequence actually is you can get 5 years of prison, and you can also be ineligible to get financial aid for college. You can't apply for federal jobs, state jobs, or city jobs, and you cannot. There's one more. I forgot the fifth one. But the main two that I want to talk about are the first two that I mentioned, the fine for $250,000 and the 5 years of prison. Now, I would say the $250,000 is more than enough to...
Just move away from the Dell because it's making you look weird.
The $250,000 fine, I would say, is actually more than enough to actually convince someone to register for the draft, whether they want to or not, even though I don't agree with it. But throwing that 5 years of prison on top of it, I mean, like, what are they trying to do? They're actually, like, pretty much trying to mess you up for life, literally, if you don't register for the draft. So why would they want to do something like this? I mean, honestly, I think that if someone is just thrown into war, they're risking their lives against their will. I would say that's a pretty scary thing for pretty much anyone. So I don't really see why they need to make you go into a situation like that where you're actually putting your life on the line when the military may be the last thing that you want to go into. Okay, so on to the next topic. I wanted to talk about why, okay, the age range between 18 and 25 is the age range for drafting. So, you know, you register at 18, men register at 18, and once you hit your 26th birthday, you're clear, you can't get drafted anymore. So the only way you can get in the Army, if you're not already in, is, you know, if you sign up, if you enlist. But before your 26th birthday, you're free to get drafted if there's a war and they need you. So, why is it that men can actually get drafted by the age of 18 when the drinking age is 21 in the country? Does that make sense to anybody? I mean, so basically you're old enough to get thrown into war against your will and to die for your country, if it happens, God forbid, but you're not old enough to drink responsibly. I actually don't understand that. I don't know if anybody else agrees with that, but I find that a little bit backwards, actually. Not that I'm promoting drinking or anything. I'm not promoting drinking, but I just find it to be kind of funny that they have their priorities switched. So that's the point I wanted to make about that. Also, between the ages of 18 and 20, you know, under 21, actually not even stopping at 20, I would say even up to 22, 23, 24, we're still young. We're still young. We make foolish decisions, and I don't think throwing us in an environment where it's like it's chaos. It's chaos when you're out in war. I don't think, you know, if you don't know what's going on, I don't think you're really gonna try to adapt yourself to this environment as best as you can. I mean, I don't think that you may be able to adapt yourself as well as an older person might be able to. Not saying that you wouldn't be able to survive if you were thrown into war, but I think that we're just too young to be thrown into war against our will. I think that should be a choice. On to my next point, I wanted to talk about the specific age range, 18 to 25, of the draft. Now, okay, so 18 to 25. What I think is especially unfair about the age range from 18 to 25, I mean, not only is the draft itself unfair, but if you think about it, 18 to 25, if you count how many years, counting 18 and counting 25, you have 8 years. That's 8 years of a chance to get drafted into war. So if someone doesn't get drafted at the beginning of a war because they have enough people enlisted, there's still enough chance that if you're not old enough and you don't reach your 26th birthday and they run out of people enlisted, you're going to get drafted. So what I think, if they're going to keep the draft, I mean, if it's absolutely necessary to keep the draft, I think they should at least limit the years that you can be drafted. Just kind of like a, halfway point, instead of just getting rid of the draft, which I would prefer. But I think 8 years is too big of a time span to have a draft. And okay. Okay. So at the time between the ages of 18 and 21, that's usually the typical time that most people go to college once they finish high school. So basically, when they throw you into war against your will, if military is not your plan, and you wanted to go to college, you wanted to make something of yourself, like those slips of paper, how your life might have ended up being. Whether you die or you don't die, whether you make it all the way through, it may make things a little more difficult because the priorities, the things that you wanted to set yourself up for in life, could have been pushed back or could have not have been reached at all. So this draft is kind of like, cutting people's dreams and successes, like what they want to do with their life. It's kind of cutting it off, I would say. So what I went over with you guys was why the consequences of the draft are unjust and why it's specifically unfair for the age range between 18 and 25. And I also covered how the country has its priorities backwards, making the drinking age an example of that. So hopefully, I hope that all of you will at least understand, or at least understand more so than you did before, why the draft in the country is unjust and why we should eliminate it, or at least, like I was saying, as a secondary option to limit limit the time span, the age range of the draft.